Hello and welcome to this PythonFu tutorial. Today we'll be covering the basics of classes and objects within PythonFu. So I'm going to be assuming a basic knowledge of classes and objects in Python, as well as the basic structure of a PythonFu program, which I covered in the previous tutorial. So why don't we get started? We can go to Filters, PythonFu, and Console. Now this opens up a Python shell with the GIMP module preloaded. So if we type in help GIMP, it will list all of the functions and fields and classes that are within the GIMP module. We scroll up to the top, here are all the classes. And we can see there's like display, image, a few others. We'll be mostly working with image and layer today. Okay, and why don't we also take a look at some of the functions. Okay, so we can see there's like default display to get the default display window. We can also get like the foreground or the background of the palette. And let me reverse this quickly. Okay. We can set gradients, get the image list, which is useful. This returns in the list type. We can quit, do all sorts of things. Alright, so why don't we start off by creating a new image. So why don't we call it image, and we can set this equal to gimp.image, and we set a size now. So why don't we make this 800 by 600 pixels. Okay, well if you notice nothing popped up, and that's because we need a display associated with this image. So why don't we type in gimp.display and img. And here we go. So now we have a new image window here. Okay, cool. And now if we were to type in gimp.image list, then it will label our image that we have right now. Okay. So now let's add a new layer. So we can call it layer1 equals gimp.layer, and we need to add the image that's associated with it. And why don't we call this layer 1, and we need a size. Why don't we make this 400 by 300. Okay. Now let's add this layer to the image. If you notice, nothing popped up over here. So we go image.add_layer and the layer's name, so layer 1. Okay, so now we can see we have this. And note that right now this has no alpha channel, so we can also add the alpha channel, which we can do by, I think it was something like that. Yep. Okay, so now this has an alpha channel as well. Excuse me. Okay, so why don't we try painting this little box red. So first of all, we need to say gimp.setForeground to set the foreground color. Now we want to make this 255, 0, and 0. These are the decimal representations of the hex numbers between 0 and 00 and FF. First one's red, green, and then there's blue. So now you can see that our palette has turned red. Alright, now why don't we fill that layer? Layer1.fill. And we need to now specify the fill type. 0 is we fill it to whatever color the foreground is. So we can see now with this. Now let's move the layer too. And we can type in layer1.translate. And we want to move this 200 by 100 pixels maybe. Why don't we say by 150, and that'll center it. So now we have this centered right here. Now let's say we were to create another layer. So layer 2 equals gimp.layer image layer 2, and we can make this the same size. And why don't we add it to the image now? Image.addLayer, layer 2. Okay, So now let's say you wanted to apply something to both of these layers. So we can do for L in and then image dot layers. So this is a for each loop. And why don't we say L dot fill with 1, which is the background color, the background in our background palette. Okay, and now you'll notice that both of them turned white as we expected. Alright, so now that we've covered the basics of the Python console, why don't we go ahead and move on to the actual scripting. Okay, so this little template that I made, it's just 3 layers, and each is a text layer. And one issue with GIMP is if we wanted to change all 3 of these, well, we'd actually have to go into each one and change, let's say like the font type, we'd have to go into each one and change this accordingly. So we go here, click on a different font, things like that. And we'd have to do that for each layer. And for 3 layers it's not that bad, but if we have more layers, let's say we have 10 layers, then it'll become a little bit of a hassle. So we're going to create a very simple plugin which will modify all 3 of these. So we're just going to change the font type and also the size of the font. Alright, so now why don't we get started? Alright, let's see. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so I'm just going to open this up in a little text file. I just typed in touch and global set font, so right now it's empty. Okay, and let's first of all make this executable. So chmod plus x global set font dot py, and this is of course in my home .gimp 2.7 plugins folder. Okay, so why don't we first start off by making sure we call the PythonFu shell, and we're going to import the GIMP modules, and why don't we also create a little function for as a template for our actual script. And here I'm just going to put in the default values that that PythonFu automatically uses. Alright, so, and the register is the same as before, so I'm just going to call this PythonFu set font, and I guess font settings. Why don't we call it global font settings? Okay, and sets all layers to use the specified font and size, I guess. And the author of the plugin, the copyright owner, and copyright year. Okay, and then I'm going to put this in the image menu, the bottom there. You can see I already have one here, which I think if I were to restart GIMP that would go away. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to put it in image and at the bottom here. So in order to do that, let's see, we need to say image set image nope, I guess global font settings such. Okay, and that'll name that as such in the menu. Alright, and we want this to work for all namespaces, or all color spaces, excuse me. And why don't we leave the inputs blank for now, and the outputs, the return values, we're not going to have any, so, and we now call set font. And let's also call main, And now, if we were to restart GIMP, go to Image and Global Font Settings. Okay, so that works so far. It's good. Okay, I'll just close this back up. Alright, so we first want to change the font size as well as the font type. So why don't we specify the inputs, the arguments. So there's a PF font type, and I'm going to call it font, and a default value of none. Alright, and then next we can have a slider for the size. So I'll call this size, and I'm gonna put the label as font size, and it can have a default value of 20 with going from 1 to 300 with a step size of 1. Okay, I think it should do. And why don't we also set a PF toggle to specify whether we want to change the size. So this will be a Boolean value. There's also PF bool, which is very similar. Change font size, I think something like that. And we want the default value to be true. So now let's add these arguments to our method. So first one will be font, and then size, and change size. Okay, so now why don't we first of all get all the layers by doing image dot layers, and if you remember, that's one of the fields within the gimp.image class, so that's why we can do that. Okay, and now why don't we say for L in all layers, and this is a for each loop, and we'll now call, and now we need to check to see if the layer is in fact a text layer. So we can do that by doing if pdb.gimp item is text layer, and call it on L. And if that's true, then we want to set the font of the layer to the specified font, the inputted font. And we want to change the size as well, so we can do that by pdb.gimp text layer set font size, and call it on layer size and 0. Okay, now only thing is we only want it to call set font size if change size is true. So we can say if change size, and like that. Okay, so now why don't we give this a shot. So right now we can change all this, and of course there's no preview yet. We'll cover that in a tutorial, later tutorial. Why don't we try setting the font, something a little bit different. Let's see. How about, this shouldn't. Alright, how about Droid Sans Bold? Okay, and why don't we disable the changing the font size for now and hit OK. And well, that did not work. Why? Oh, also undoing doesn't seem to work yet. Let's see. Okay. So for L in all layers, this'll do it. This should be L, not layer. Okay. And now we click this and try changing it. everything changes. Looks good. Okay, why don't we also test changing the size? So now make this 15, and the size of the image layer is also changed. Cool. So everything seems to work. And we also want to probably enable the undo. So we can do that by, let's see, go to the procedure browser, undo. You can see there's a undo group start and undo group end, so we'll do that. pdb.gimp undo group start, and image pdb.gimp undo group end of on the image. And now hopefully if we click this, change it to newspaper and hit OK. Ooh, that's not good. GIMP undo image undo group. Okay. Okay. So now, as you can see, I Control Z and Control Y, and it switches between the two. So that sums it up for this tutorial, and next time we'll be covering more advanced user interface features so modifying this little window here. And thanks for watching.